Hello, listener. Step right up because you're about to join us for a deep dive into something genuinely universal, the experience of shopping, specifically navigating stores and transactions when you're using English.
That's right. We've got a single targeted source in front of us today, a guide explicitly designed to boost your confidence in English shopping situations, promising to help you sound like a native.
And our job in this deep dive is to take that source, unpack it completely, pull out every essential piece of knowledge and insight, and understand why the creator chose these specific words, these particular phrases, and these practical tips as the absolute core for feeling comfortable and effective when you're out and about spending your money in English.
Yeah, exactly. This whole deep dive is tailored just for you, designed to give you that vital shortcut to mastering those everyday shopping interactions.
Think of us as your guides through this material. We're going to explore what the source highlights as most important, connect the dots between its different sections, and, well, figure out the underlying strategy behind it all.
So let's jump in and unpack this guide to English shopping confidence.
Okay. The source gets right to the point, starting immediately with vocabulary it deems must know. It really lays down the basic map of the shopping landscape, doesn't it?
It does, and that's a smart starting point, I think. Language proficiency in any specific context, like, shopping, requires having the fundamental building blocks, the key nouns, the key verbs, the essential descriptors.
Right.
And the guide divides this initial vocabulary set logically. First, common words you'll encounter in many different types of shops, and then it sort of zooms in slightly on vocabulary specific to buying clothing.
Oh, okay.
Which is a very frequent shopping activity for many people. It covers the general environment before touching on a specific high probability scenario.
Got it. So let's look at that first list of common shopping words. It starts with store and shop, even using the same little building emoji for both.
Yeah.
What's the significance of beginning right there with the physical location itself?
Well, you have to name the space you're in, right? Store and shop are the most basic, overarching terms for a place where goods are sold.
Okay.
Now, while the single emoji might suggest they're interchangeable in the guide's context, understanding that store is maybe more common in American English and shop, perhaps more in British English, is already a useful nuance. Even if the source doesn't explicitly state it here, they are the fundamental containers for the entire activity. Identifying where you are just sets the stage.
Right, ground zero. Knowing the environment.
Exactly. If you can't even name the place you're in, starting any interaction becomes, well, much harder.
Okay, from that general starting point, it quickly moves to supermarket, complete with a shopping cart emoji, which is instantly recognizable.
Yes. And this is a crucial pivot point the guide makes early on. By including supermarket, the source immediately signals that its scope isn't limited to, say, just browsing for clothes or electronics in a retail store.
Right, not just malls.
Exactly. It explicitly includes grocery shopping, an absolutely essential, high-frequency task for anyone living or spending significant time in an English-speaking country.
True.
A supermarket is a large, often self-service store primarily focused on food and household goods. And the language needed here can differ slightly from a boutique,
Oh, definitely. Produce, weights.
Yeah, different cuts of meat, the dairy section, checkout line specifics. Including this term shows the guide is highly practical, targeting necessary everyday consumer activities, not just like optional leisure shopping.
It grounds the learning in real-life necessity. We also see cashier paired with a credit card emoji. This points to the human element at a very specific point in the process.
Exactly. The cashier is the person responsible for completing the transaction, handling the money or card payment, and this is often where a significant part of the linguistic interaction happens.
Yeah, the crunch time.
Right. Confirming the price, discussing payment methods, dealing with bags, asking for a receipt. Knowing the word cashier means you can identify the person you need to interact with at the end of your shopping journey.
It names the key individual.
It does. The person who facilitates the exchange of money for goods. It's the final human touch point in many shopping scenarios.
Next up is price. On the surface, it seems almost too obvious. You can't shop without thinking about price. But why highlight this specific word so early and prominently?
Because it is fundamental, almost universally the most critical piece of information a shopper needs before making a decision. Being able to ask about or understand the cost of an item is, well, non-negotiable.
Can't really proceed without it.
No. If you can't figure out the price, the rest of the shopping process is blocked. The guide's early emphasis on price underscores its absolute centrality to any transaction. It's the core value exchange you need to comprehend.
Seems simple, but vital.
Its importance cannot be overstated for a learner navigating a new language environment.
And then there are the related terms, discount and sale. The party popper emoji for discount is interesting, maybe celebrating a lower price.
Could be.
The tag for sale is more straightforward.
They are indeed related, but distinct, and both are very common parts of the shopping experience that the guide includes. A sale, often indicated with signs and that tag emoji, is a specific period or event where a store offers goods at reduced prices.
Like a summer sale or something.
Exactly. A discount, as the name suggests, and maybe prompting celebration, is the reduction itself, a percentage off, a fixed amount off, a buy one, get one deal. Knowing these terms means you can understand opportunities to save money, respond to promotional signage, or ask if an item is discounted. It shows the guide addresses common commercial practices beyond just the basic purchase.
It's about understanding value and promotions. We see fitting room or changing room. What's that? The door emoji is quite literal here.
Yes, and this term is specifically for clothing retail, a context the guide seems to give particular attention to, as we'll see with the clothing vocabulary later.
Okay.
The guide provides both fitting room and changing room, acknowledging common synonyms or perhaps regional variations. Both terms are widely understood, really.
Good to know both.
Yeah. This is the designated private space where you try on clothes before deciding whether to buy them. Including this term is essential because the process of trying on clothes is a key step for many shoppers.
Definitely.
And you need to be able to locate this room and potentially ask permission to use it. It highlights a practical physical need within the store.
And finally, in this core common list, receipt.
Yeah.
With that tiny slip of paper emoji.
Absolutely crucial. Often overlooked by learners, I think, but vital for post-purchase activities.
Like returns.
Exactly. Returns, exchanges, warranties, or simply keeping track of your spending. A receipt is the written proof of purchase.
Can't do much without it sometimes.
Pretty much. The guide's inclusion of receipt early on, right alongside the locations and people, elevates its importance beyond just a piece of paper. It's the documentation of the transaction, and knowing the word means you can request it, which is a standard and often necessary step.
Okay, so after each of these vocabulary lists, the source includes a repeat after me section, listing the words again. What does this simple instruction tell us about the guide's underlying philosophy or recommended learning method?
Well, this is a strong signal, I think, that the guide creator believes active audio practice is fundamental, especially for speaking confidence.
Right, not just reading.
Not just reading or recognizing the words. The instruction to repeat after me emphasizes pronunciation, intonation, and vocalization. It prompts the user to physically produce the sounds and words.
Get your mouth moving.
Yes, which is critical for building muscle memory, for speaking and feeling comfortable using the language in real-time interactions. It suggests the guide values oral fluency right from the start.
Okay, so that covers the general shopping environment in key concepts. The guide then narrows the focus specifically to clothing, listing t-shirt, jeans, shoes, jacket, hot.
This provides a small, curated set of highly common clothing items. These are items that are universally recognized and frequently purchased.
Basics.
Exactly. The guide isn't attempting to provide an exhaustive fashion dictionary. Instead, it's giving the learner immediate, high-utility vocabulary for shopping scenarios they are very likely to encounter, regardless of personal style. Knowing these 5 words allows you to talk about buying a significant portion of a basic wardrobe.
And predictably, that repeat after me instruction follows this list as well.
Yep, reinforcing that commitment to active pronunciation practice. The guide clearly believes that vocal repetition is key to internalizing vocabulary for actual spoken use.
Consistent.
Very. It's consistent reinforcement of their recommended method.
Why these 5 specific clothing items, do you think? Why not socks, a dress, or a sweater? Is there something strategic about this particular selection?
I think there's a definite strategy here, yeah. Look at the categories they represent. We have tops, t-shirt, jacket, bottoms, jeans, footwear, shoes, and an accessory, hat.
Okay, covering the bases.
Right. In just 5 words, the guide covers a range of different clothing types and locations on the body. This provides maximum initial utility with minimal vocabulary burden.
Efficient.
Very efficient. These are also arguably universally recognized and worn items across many cultures, making them relatable to almost any learner. It's a very efficient selection aimed at providing immediate conversational ability about common apparel.
So this initial vocabulary section, covering both general shopping terms and specific clothing items, is essentially providing the foundational bricks and mortar you need before you can start building conversations.
Precisely. The guide prioritizes giving you the essential nouns for the places, the key person, the critical concepts like price and discount, the relevant action space, fitting room, and the transaction outcome, receipt.
Naming the key elements.
Exactly. Then it adds a highly practical, limited set of items you'd frequently buy. It's practical, targeted vocabulary designed for immediate recognition and eventual use.
All right, we've got the building blocks, the individual words, but shopping isn't just about identifying things, it's about interacting. The source takes us to the next logical step, moving beyond single words and jumping right into useful phrases. This is where you start putting those words into action, isn't it?
Absolutely. Isolated words are helpful for understanding signage or identifying objects, but phrases are the currency of conversation. They allow you to do things.
Ask questions, make requests.
Exactly. Initiate contact, respond to staff. And the guide structures this section very effectively by dividing phrases based on where you are in the store, at the store, while you're browsing and need assistance, and then at the cashier when you're ready to pay.
Following the flow of shopping.
Yeah, it mirrors the natural progression of a typical shopping trip. Very logical.
The first phrase listed for use at the store is a classic and essential opener. Excuse me, how much is this?
Perfect starting point. Essential, excuse me, is the standard, polite way to get someone's attention before making a request or asking a question in an English-speaking context.
Can't just shout, hey!
Well, you could, but excuse me is much better. And how much is this? Is the most direct, fundamental question you'll need to ask about an item you're considering buying. It directly applies the price vocabulary we just discussed.
Practical.
Very practical. It also helpfully provides the clerk's likely simple response. It's $20, which gives the learner a complete basic interaction loop, question and answer.
Then we see another common situation. Do you have this in medium size? And the suggested response from the clerk, yes, let me check.
Yeah, this introduces the crucial skill of inquiring about variations of an item you like. Once you've found an item, you often need it in a specific size, color, or material.
Right. Size is a big one for clothes.
Absolutely. Linking back to the clothing vocabulary. Knowing how to ask about availability in a different size is highly practical, and the clerk's response, yes, let me check, is a standard, polite acknowledgement.
I heard you. I'll look.
Exactly. They've understood the request and are taking action. It manages the learner's expectation of what happens next.
Two more phrases listed for practice relate directly to trying on clothes. Gotta try this on. And where is the fitting room?
Logical companions, these two. And directly link back to the fitting room vocabulary, can I try this on, is the essential phrase for requesting permission to use the fitting room for a specific item.
Need to ask first, usually.
Often, yeah. And where is the fitting room is how you find the location itself if it's not obvious. Grouping these together is smart because they represent the two key questions related to the process of trying clothes on.
Permission and location.
You got it.
Looking at these at-the-store phrases, what's a key observation about their structure and the role they give the learner?
Well, a crucial point is that almost all the phrases provided for the learner in this section are questions. How much? 8 do you have? Can I? Where is?
Asking for things.
Right. The guide prioritizes equipping the learner to ask for information or permission. This strategy puts the learner in a proactive position. They don't have to wait to be asked. They can initiate the interaction to get the information or access they need.
That's empowering.
Incredibly empowering for building confidence, being able to take control of the conversation to meet your needs.
And just like with the vocabulary, the repeat after me instruction appears after these phrases.
Absolutely consistent. It underscores the guide's core method. Practice speaking these phrases aloud. Repetition helps internalize the rhythm, intonation, and structure.
Makes it feel natural.
Yeah, makes them feel more natural to say when the moment arises in a real store. It's about building that oral fluency.
Now, shifting to the end of the purchase journey, we have phrases for the interaction at the cashier. The guide starts by listing a phrase the cashier might say. Is that all?
A standard, polite closing question used by staff in many service interactions, not just shopping. It confirms whether the customer is finished selecting items or if they have anything else they want to purchase before the transaction is finalized.
Okay.
And the guide provides the learner's simple and appropriate response. Yes, that's all, which signals to the cashier that you are ready to pay.
wrapping it up.
Yes, finalizing the selection process.
Then, understandably, the payment-related phrases. Can I pay by card? Yeah. And do you accept credit cards?
Oh, these are absolutely vital in the modern world, aren't they? Cash isn't always king anymore. Can I pay by card is a general question that usually covers both debit and credit cards.
Yeah, usually covers both.
Do you accept credit cards is slightly more specific, but often used interchangeably or as a follow-up. Clarifying payment options is essential to avoid an awkward situation.
Definitely want to know beforehand.
Right. If your preferred method isn't accepted, knowing these phrases ensures you can confirm this key detail beforehand or at the point of payment. It empowers the learner to manage the practical logistics.
And the final phrase listed for the cashier interaction is, can I have a receipt, please?
This loops back to the receipt vocabulary from the first section. And notice the please is crucial here.
Politeness counts.
It does, and its inclusion subtly reinforces the importance of politeness, a theme the guide makes explicit later in its tips section. This phrase ensures you get that important documentation for returns or record keeping. It's a standard request the guide encourages the learner to make confidently.
So just like the at the store, phrases were mostly questions initiated by the learner. Many of these at the cashier phrases are also questions from the learner.
Yes, exactly. Again, the guide is giving the learner agency. They can confirm their selection is complete, they can initiate the question about payment method, and they can request the receipt.
Putting them in charge.
Yes, this focus on empowering the learner to ask for what they need is a clear and effective strategy throughout the phrase section. It moves them from a passive recipient of information to an active participant in the transaction.
And that familiar repeat after me is there again, driving home the method.
Completely consistent. Practice aloud is key for fluency and comfort when you need to use these phrases in a real, potentially fast-paced interaction.
This entire section on phrases provides the essential lines you need for the key functional moments of a shopping trip. Getting information about an item, checking details or asking to try it, confirming your purchase, and handling payment and documentation.
Precisely. It provides the verbal scripts for navigating the core interactions, from initial interest through to completing the purchase. It's designed to give the learner the specific language tools needed at each critical point along the way, building confidence by preparing them for predictable exchanges.
The source then takes the vocabulary and phrases we've just discussed and puts them together into a short dialogue. This feels like the practical application, showing how these pieces fit into a flowing conversation, doesn't it?
It really does. This is the critical step where the isolated components are assembled into a realistic whole. The guide moves from teaching words and individual sentences to demonstrating a typical, albeit simple, exchange.
Seeing it in action.
Exactly. It provides a concrete example of how the learned language functions cohesively in practice, showing the learner what a successful interaction might look and sound like. It's like seeing the recipe ingredients finally come together as a dish.
Let's walk through that dialogue. It starts with the customer initiating the interaction, asking about the price of a specific item. Excuse me, how much is this t-shirt?
A perfect opening. It directly applies the, excuse me, how much is this phrase, and integrates the t-shirt vocabulary item from the first section.
Really?
Very. It's a very common and realistic scenario, especially in a clothing store context, which the guide seems to favor for its examples. It immediately puts the learned material into action in a relatable situation.
The clerk responds with the price. It's $15. Simple, direct, providing the requested information.
Yes, demonstrating the expected format of the response. The interaction is concise and efficient, mirroring the speed and directness often found in transactional English.
The customer then uses another learned phrase structure to ask about a variation. Do you have it in blue?
Right. This shows how the earlier phrase, do you have this in medium size, can be easily adapted. The structure is the same, just swapping medium size for blue.
Flexible.
Highlights the flexibility of the learned phrases. The clerk's response, yes, here you go, indicates they successfully found the item in the requested variation the blue color and are presenting it. Shows a positive outcome.
And the customer proceeds to the next logical step for clothing, asking to try it on. Can I try it on?
Directly using the phrase, can I try this on, learned in the previous section. It follows logically after finding the desired item in the correct color. It demonstrates the sequence.
And the clerk confirms and provides direction?
Yeah.
Sure, the fitting room is over there.
Very typical response. Sure is a common informal equivalent of yes in conversational English, indicating agreement. And it's combined with a clear direction, implicitly referencing the fitting room vocabulary. This completes the interaction sequence related to trying on clothes.
It's a really concise yet complete interaction covering 3 core shopping actions: asking the price, asking about a variation, and asking to try on the item.
Yes, it's a masterclass in economy, really.
Yeah.
The dialogue effectively and efficiently weaves together elements from the vocabulary and phrases sections into a realistic step-by-step scenario that a learner is highly likely to encounter.
A mini script.
Exactly. A concrete mini-script example showing precisely how the learned language functions cohesively in practice and how a typical successful interaction unfolds. It makes the connection between isolated words phrases and real conversation explicit and tangible.
Immediately after this dialogue, the guide gives a specific instruction. Repeat the dialogue slowly with me. Shadowing practice. What exactly is shadowing practice in this context, and why is it recommended here?
Well, the guide's instruction, repeat the dialogue slowly with me, is the key, isn't it? While it doesn't give a formal definition, it clearly refers to repeating the dialogue as it is spoken, closely following the original speaker's words, rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation.
Mimicking.
Exactly. It's a technique where you mimic the source audio, trying to match it as closely as possible, like a shadow following the original.
And why is this particular method emphasized right after the dialogue?
The placement is strategic. The dialogue shows you what to say in a natural sequence. The shadowing instruction tells you how to practice saying it to sound natural and fluent.
Got it. Not just words, but delivery.
Precisely. The guide creator clearly places high value not just on knowing the words and phrases, but on being able to deliver them with comfortable pronunciation and appropriate intonation, moving towards that goal of sounding like a native.
Makes sense.
And shadowing is an excellent technique for this because it helps learners internalize the sound, rhythm, and flow of spoken English in context, improving their accent, speed, and overall fluency. It's an active method for drilling the spoken form.
Moving beyond just knowing to actually doing.
Yes, it moves beyond cognitive understanding to physical practice and mimicry, getting the language into your mouth and ears in a natural way.
So the dialogue provides the script of what to say, and the shadowing instruction provides the technique for practicing how to say it naturally and confidently.
Exactly. It's a practical demonstration of the language in use, immediately followed by a highly effective, active technique for practicing the delivery of that language for mastery. A key, actionable insight.
The source then shifts gears a bit, moving from specific language points to broader practical and cultural tips related to shopping in English-speaking environments. This is about more than just the words you use, isn't it? It's about how you use them and understanding the unspoken rules.
Yes, absolutely. This section adds a crucial layer of cultural intelligence and social norms that complement the language skills. Knowing the vocabulary and phrases is essential, but truly confident interaction requires understanding the expected behavior.
How to act.
Right. How to initiate contact politely, how to make requests, and what is considered appropriate or inappropriate in different situations. These tips provide that vital layer of practical wisdom.
This social code.
Exactly. Helps the learner navigate the shopping experience smoothly and avoid potential awkwardness or misunderstandings. Language isn't just grammar, it's also knowing the social code.
Let's look at the first tip. Always greet with hi, or, excuse me.
This reinforces the importance of initiating contact respectfully in a service setting. As we saw in the phrases section, excuse me, is the standard polite way to get someone's attention. Hi is simple, friendly, and very common informal greeting. This tip tells the learner you don't just immediately launch into your request, you start with a polite acknowledgement.
That's a positive tone.
Exactly. Aligns with general social etiquette in English-speaking cultures when approaching someone for help or service.
Tip number 2 is ask for the price politely.
Yeah, this reiterates the importance of politeness specifically when seeking information about cost. While how much is this is a direct question, how you say it matters.
Tone matters.
Tone, using, maybe adding please, it's all part of framing the request politely. This tip explicitly reminds the learner that even direct questions about money should be handled with courtesy.
Tip 3 is presented as a reminder. Don't forget to ask for a receipt.
This highlights the importance the guide places on obtaining the receipt, linking back to the vocabulary and the phrase, "Can I have a receipt, please?" Framing it as, "Don't forget," suggests this is a step that might be easily missed.
Yeah, maybe not standard everywhere.
Right, could be easily missed by a non-native speaker, but is considered standard practice and important, likely for practical reasons, like returns or exchanges later. It elevates getting the receipt from optional to recommended best practice.
And then there's tip number 4. which is quite specific and culturally nuanced. In some stores, you can bargain in markets, but not in malls.
Now, this tip is particularly valuable because it addresses a common area of significant cultural difference in shopping norms around the world.
Bargaining.
Yes.
Yeah.
In many cultures, bargaining or negotiating the price is standard, expected, even enjoyable. However, in typical English-speaking Western countries, prices in most retail stores, malls, chain stores, department stores are fixed.
Don't even try it there.
Generally, no. Attempting to bargain in such a setting is usually seen as unusual, inappropriate, and will almost certainly be unsuccessful.
But markets might be different.
Right. In less formal settings like street markets, flea markets, or farmers markets, what the guide calls markets bargaining might be acceptable or even expected, although the degree varies a lot.
That distinction between markets and malls regarding bargaining is really key.
Hmm.
Why do you think the guide specifically chose to include this cultural point compared to countless other potential shopping differences?
Well, I think it's likely included because the expectation around bargaining is such a fundamental and often contrasting norm across cultures.
A major potential friction point.
Exactly. It's a point where a learner from a culture where bargaining is common could easily make a significant social misstep or feel confused and frustrated if they try to bargain where it's not accepted.
Or miss out on a deal where it is expected.
Or, conversely, pay full price in a market where bargaining is expected. By providing this clear, dichotomous rule based on venue-type market versus mall, the guide gives the learner actionable knowledge.
Removes a major confusion point.
Exactly. Empowers them by removing a major potential area of confusion and awkwardness. Knowing this one distinction can dramatically change a learner's confidence and experience depending on where they are shopping.
Prevents offending staff or overpaying.
Hmm.
So these tips essentially provide the social and cultural framework that wraps around the vocabulary and phrases, ensuring the learner not only knows what to say, but also how to behave appropriately.
Exactly. They provide the practical wisdom, the unspoken rules, and the cultural awareness needed to navigate the shopping experience smoothly and respectfully within the implied context of the guide. It's the essential how-to guide for the social aspects.
Complementing the linguistic what to say.
You got it.
The source also includes a listening practice section, indicated by a headphone emoji. Yes. This shifts the focus from producing language yourself speaking to understanding what others are saying to you. Equally important, isn't it?
Absolutely. Communication is a two-way street. Being confident requires not only being able to ask your questions, but also being able to understand the responses and information given by the staff.
Gotta understand the answer.
Right. This listening practice section addresses that crucial receptive skill. The guide provides a short, simple audio example implied anyway, and asks the learner to listen and identify a specific piece of information.
The dialogue provided for listening is very brief. The clerk initiates, "Hello, can I help you?" The customer states their purpose, "Yes, I'm looking for a jacket." And the clerk offers relevant info. "We have jackets on sale today."
A very realistic and common micro-interaction. Clerk uses a standard opening. Customer states their need, clearly using the jacket vocabulary.
I'm looking for the good phrase.
Yes. And the clerk provides helpful information, connecting back to the sale concept we discussed earlier, indicating a potential discount. It's a focused exchange using previously introduced language.
The comprehension question posed is simple. What is the customer looking for? And the guide provides the answer. A jacket.
Yeah, it's a basic but effective comprehension check. It tests whether the learner can listen to the spoken dialogue and pick out the most critical piece of information conveyed by the customer.
Just listening for that key noun.
Pretty much. It reinforces the importance of listening for key nouns and verbs to understand the speaker's intent and needs. While simple, correctly answering this question builds confidence in the learner's ability to understand spoken English in this context.
How does this listening practice section fit into and complement the other parts of the guide, the vocabulary, phrases, and dialogue?
It provides a necessary balance, I think. The earlier sections heavily emphasize language production, knowing what words and phrases to say and practicing saying them.
Right, the speaking part.
This section focuses on language reception, being able to understand what is said to you using that same vocabulary and in similar phrase structures. Both skills are absolutely essential.
Can't have one without the other.
Nope. You need to be able to ask, how much is this? But you also need to understand the response, it's $15. This listening practice reinforces the vocabulary and concepts from a different but equally vital skill angle.
Puts the words in your ear, not just your mouth.
Precisely. It applies the vocabulary and phrase components within a receptive skill context, simulating the experience of hearing and needing to process spoken English during a real shopping interaction. It's a practical test of comprehension.
The source wraps everything up with a review section, concisely listing the main points covered. This feels like a final consolidation, a checklist of the absolute essentials, doesn't it?
It does. This review serves as a very effective summary and consolidation tool. By listing the key categories and providing examples, the guide helps the learner mentally organize the information they've just processed.
Aids memory.
Exactly. Acts as a quick checklist to reinforce the most important elements and make them easier to recall later. It's designed to highlight what the guide creator believes are the non-negotiable takeaways.
It lists the vocabulary first, with examples like store, cashier, fitting room.
Right, brings the learner back to the absolute foundation, identifying the key places and the key person in the shopping environment, reminds them that knowing these basic nouns is the starting point.
Then it lists phrases with examples like, how much is this? And can I try this on?
These examples highlight the crucial high-frequency questions that empower the learner to get essential information a price and make common requests trying on clothes. The guide specifically picks out these two as representative.
Core interactions.
Mhm.
And finally, it lists tips for polite shopping.
This encompasses the cultural and practical advice given, reinforcing that understanding the social norms and being polite is just as important as using the correct words and phrases.
Brings back the politeness theme.
Yes, underscores politeness as a key theme running through the guide's recommendations for successful interactions.
Why would the guide finish with this kind of review section? What purpose does it serve the learner at the very end?
Well, reviews are vital for learning retention, aren't they? By concisely summarizing the core elements, the foundational vocabulary, the essential functional phrases, and the crucial social cultural tips, the guide helps the learner solidify the information.
A mental map.
Yes, it reinforces that these specific categories and examples are the absolute core building blocks the guide has provided for achieving confidence in English shopping interactions. It gives the learner a clear mental map of what they should focus on remembering and practicing.
It's like the guide's final message. These are the key things you need to walk away with.
Effectively, yes. It's emphasizing the core, practical elements deemed most critical for the learner to feel prepared and confident when stepping into a shopping scenario in English. It brings the entire deep dive back to the practical goal, helping you shop with ease. So we've truly unpacked this guide, examining its structure, its key vocabulary choices, the utility of its phrases, the practical application in the dialogue, the importance of its cultural tips, the value of its practice methods, and the purpose of its review. It's clear the source provides a very practical, step-by-step approach to equipping learners with the tools for real-world shopping interactions in English.
Thinking about that fascinating tip the guide gave regarding bargaining. You know, the distinction between markets and malls.
Yes, that very specific piece of cultural knowledge. Bargaining in some markets might be okay, but definitely not in malls. A huge difference.
It really makes you pause and consider, doesn't it? How does simply knowing that one specific cultural rule, knowing where negotiation is generally accepted and where it's completely off the table,
Yeah.
how does that fundamentally change your entire approach and feeling of confidence
Yeah,
when you step into those different types of shopping environments in an English-speaking country?
it's huge.
How does that one piece of information, distinct from vocabulary or grammar, suddenly empower you to navigate those spaces more smoothly and appropriately, avoiding potential awkwardness or missteps?
It's a fantastic point. It really highlights that fluency is about so much more than just the words themselves. It's about understanding the context, the unwritten rules. That one tip alone could save a lot of potential embarrassment or confusion.
Yeah, something to really think about. That was a genuinely practical deep dive. We've extracted the essential vocabulary, explored key phrases for different shopping moments, analyzed how they come together in a realistic dialogue, highlighted crucial cultural and practical tips, and even looked at the specific practice method the source recommends for sounding more natural.
Absolutely. This deep dive into the source material has hopefully given you a much clearer and deeper understanding of the specific building blocks and strategies the guide identifies as crucial for confidently navigating shopping in English. You now have a detailed map of the key areas to focus on in your own learning journey.
The words, the questions,
Right, the core words, the essential questions to ask and listen for, the important social cues, and importantly, the value of practicing aloud.
Remember those practice techniques highlighted in the source, especially shadowing. The guide creator clearly believes they are vital for internalizing the language and moving towards sounding more natural and native-like.
Definitely.
Keep exploring these concepts, keep practicing the words and phrases, and apply these insights the next time you find yourself shopping in English. That's where the real learning happens.
We sincerely hope this deep dive has been valuable for you and helps you feel significantly more prepared and confident the next time you go shopping.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a different source.